Hi everybody. We're all stuck inside for the situation the world's experiencing right now, and I hope first and foremost everyone is safe and doing well. So one way to pass the time and to keep your photographic skills sharp is to shoot still lifes. A lot of artists, photographers included, kind of shrug their shoulders at the thought of producing a still life. They look at creating a still life as maybe a rite of passage leading to bigger and better works of art. Well, in my mind, nothing could be further from the truth. First off, a good still life contains some kind of meaning. A quality still life has a purpose and says something. Objects selected for a still life have very specific meanings that have been handed down through the ages, so we'll explore a few of them. Above all, a quality still life tries to tell a story. Since we're all stuck inside, it might be a little tough to produce a still life masterpiece since we're limited by the objects hanging around the house or apartment, but you can make really good use of what you have. Practicing with object selection, placement, lighting, and exposure is good training with the goal of eventually producing a masterpiece in mind. So here's the cameras we're going to use for this. We're going to use a vintage Canon 10D with a 50mm nifty 50 lens, and we're also going to use a more up-to-date mirrorless Canon M50. The M50 is shown here with a 22mm fixed lens, but I also used the 15-45 kit lens. The kit lens is the lens on the right. The Canon 10D is a great vintage DSLR. It's got a sensor in it that gives you very soft film-like images. You can always get these camera bodies for just super cheap. A 10D body hovers around $50 US. Staying as inexpensive as possible, we'll use a Canon 50mm f1.8 nifty 50 as our primary lens on the 10D. This lens goes for $125 US new and a lot less used. So, bottom line, you can get a 10D rig with a nifty 50 for around $175. And just to be clear, the 10D shown here has a 35mm lens on it, f2.0, which is a lot more expensive. It's a great lens, but most of the time I just fall back on the nifty 50. It's such a good lens. So our setup is pretty crude but effective. I just used a cardboard box as a shadow box. I spray painted the inside flat black and put some paper on the bottom and just taped it in and sprayed that back so I wouldn't see the cardboard folds or anything like that. The tape on the bottom is a little distracting, but usually the subjects that we're shooting cover those up. I use this box all the time when I'm doing pencil drawings. As far as the lights go, I just used a couple LED pancake lights I had left over from an old Polaroid product shooting kit. It was very inexpensive, but these lights are really irrelevant. You can use any lights. I've used LED work lights, incandescent lights, you can use desk lamps, any type of light that you want to. What you're really concerned with is not so much the light, but the placement of the light and how it casts the shadows on your subjects. So here's the first shot setup. I wanted a classical art theme for the first still life, so I had a hand mannequin, a Da Vinci drawing book, some brushes, and a set of pastels. I played around with the lights and the positioning and came up with this. The final shot came out like this. It looked a little bit better with a vertical orientation. It was processed in Lightroom and Photoshop, and I primarily use a light painting technique. If you check out the video Pop Your Shots with Light Painting, I show you how to do this. It's pretty simple. I was pretty happy with the abstract nature of this shot. This was shot with a 10D in a more traditional style, and I used a minimal amount of light painting in Lightroom to do this. As I mentioned before, the 10D has such a film-like quality to the sensor. I just am just blown away by this camera. You need some patience to use it. It's old, it's slow, it's a little clunky, but it just produces great images. For the next setup, I just wanted to make one a little bit more expansive and use some of the traditional components of a classical still life. Interesting thing is about apples. In Western culture, apples is a symbol for original sin and temptation. Apples also may signify death, knowledge, and love. Flowers can represent a wide range of emotions and sentiments. They portray the temporary nature of life and age, especially with dead or wilting flowers, or rebirth and purity when they're fresh. And books signify wisdom, knowledge, or the transmission of knowledge. Also in the foreground is a brown egg, which represents birth and renewal. So here's a few final shots taken with the M50. The M50 is a good camera, and so is the kit lens. It's inexpensive, it's plastic, but you can get some really decent shots with it. The main reason I put the glass vase in the background is just to get the reflections from the lights, to add a little bit of interest. You can see the 3 reflections in the top right corner. I'm also a really big fan of the Dutch master painters, especially their still lifes, so I wanted to try and emulate that a little bit. So here are the shots taken with the 10D with a lot less processing. All I really did was take the overall exposure down and then light paint in some of the highlights. It's got kind of a good old Dutch masters feel to it, and again, the film-like quality that the 10D produces is, I don't know where it's matched in any other type of camera. So for a Canon 10D, you can put a rig together like this for around $175. Hard to beat. And depending how you build it out, you can start a Canon M50 for around $600. This has a small rig cage and a little bit more expensive 22mm fixed lens. The M50 is a great practical camera with dual pixel autofocus, great video, and a whole ton of features. So again, we're all stuck inside for a little while. I hope everybody's happy and healthy and safe. And it's a good time to practice still lifes. So here's a few examples of some of the still lifes I've shot over the years. So thanks for watching. This is Jeff. Stay safe, and I'll talk with you soon.